So it seems like everything from Moscow to Crimea is getting hit by Ukrainian drones. Over time, that is going to impose a real challenge for the Russian army at the front, but for now, they continue to push. And one area in the east is coming under more and more pressure every single day. In fact, according to the analysts at Deep State Map, they say, quote, "The situation around Kostiantynivka is unfolding in the worst-case scenario, as the enemy has emerged from all sides on the outskirts of the city and is exerting active pressure and infiltrating into the settlement." So today we're going to be taking a look at a number of Russian and Ukrainian sources to try to better understand what exactly is playing out in this specific sector of the front. Starting to look at a map here, this is Deep State Map. We've got the eastern Ukraine that we're going to be focused on today, the Donetsk region right here, kind of in the middle of the map. This is a fortress belt, is probably the best way to describe this, that Russia has spent a crazy amount of manpower, equipment, and now years to try to take. So we've got Liman down to Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Drushivka, and then Kostiantynivka. And it doesn't take a master strategist to look at this area and say that's a problem for the Ukrainian armed forces. We've seen this situation play out before, where Russia envelops around a number of different sides, cuts off the logistics so Ukraine can no longer get anything in or out, and slowly over time capture the city. That generally seems like what we're seeing play out here. Now, according to Russian media Rybar, they say, quote, "In the Kostiantynivka direction, Russian forces continue to advance successfully through urban areas. Footage that appeared online showing Russian flags being raised in various districts of the city confirms further advances by assault units and the expansion of Russian armed forces control zones." Which brings us to the concept of flag plantings in this war, because we're seeing it here in Kostiantynivka, and there's been a lot of debate about how accurate those are. Now, this concept is something that's been used by both sides, where you have a soldier or a small group of soldiers wave a flag from their location, show it to a friendly drone to verify, hey, we actually are in the location we said we are, or we've actually captured the location we said we've captured. This has been taken out of context and exaggerated a couple times throughout the conflict. The lines are porous, and we know that. It's not that crazy for a soldier to make it through enemy lines to a depth of 5, sometimes 10 kilometers. They often don't last very long in that scenario, but sometimes enough to wave a flag, and that gets spread as propaganda. Look, we did it. In some cases, we have seen Russia use those flag planting operations to change their maps of control and say, look, there's a Russian soldier at, point X. We now control everything from the known line of contact to him. And of course, that's not true. The soldiers at the front know that's not true. And increasingly, we're getting information that the Russian chain of command also knows that's not true. In fact, Russian mill blogger Romanov, talking about this recently, said that the situation was so bad that they actually sent inspectors from the Russian Ministry of Defense to the Kostiantynivka direction to try to measure the mismatch between what was being reported and the actual situation on the ground. And they found a difference of 17 kilometers. As in 17 kilometers that Russia had said they had taken and reported up the chain of command, that on the ground was at the very least contested, if not still in Ukrainian control. Romanov said that the way they went about trying to resolve this was the unit immediately sent 40 people, including UAV operators, to storm the covered position, adding that all 40 were killed in 2 hours. Romanov said that in many command posts throughout Russia, there are 2 maps. One with the actual front line for planning operations, and another one for what they send up the chain of command to boast about their successes. So think about that. Keep that in mind. Even the Russian military knows that some of these maps are nowhere near accurate. So when we look at the detail in a city like this, when you zoom way out, it's one thing. But when you're looking at the detail here of Kostiantynivka, are the Russian forces really at this farm? Or are they a little bit back? Does Ukraine really hold this area? Are they a little bit back? Big, big, big grain of salt. Now, the Ukrainian Deep State Map actually talked about this as well, saying that the Russians often want to show progress so badly that they send their guys forward well before it's even cleared, saying, quote, "However, it's worth remembering that the Russians don't count their people, so this tactic is normal for them and not a cause for joy. In Pokrovsk, they also lost a lot of infantry, but in the end, they captured the city." So it's not really something to celebrate or say it must mean that Russia is not advancing. This is just kind of how they operate, and we're seeing it now in Kostiantynivka. Now, turning to the operations playing out in this area, Russian media Rybar, talking to this, said, quote, "The nature of the current fighting is well demonstrated by reports from the scene. Even after losing a unified command and supply system, the enemy remains capable of holding out in individual multi-story buildings, basements, and prepared strong points, which requires clearing block by block." Another Russian reporter, Alexander Kots, talked about these operations in a recent post, where he said Russian forces work in groups of 2 to 3 people, enough to clear the entrance to a multi-story building. And said they go after underground shelters with modified TM-62 anti-tank mines. We've seen this used quite a bit throughout this war. That's kind of the preferred method to clear out some of these underground shelters. Seeing it now in Kostiantynivka. Rybar also talked about the impact of the Russian drone operators in specifically trying to cut off supplies into the city. They say one of the key factors in the Russian forces' success remains the work of drone operators. Over the past weeks, drone crews have systematically struck transport, temporary deployment points, and supply routes of the Ukrainian grouping. In fact, this amounts to isolating the combat zone. Ukrainian units increasingly find themselves unable to promptly deliver reinforcements, evacuate the wounded, and deliver ammunition. Again, it doesn't take too much battlefield or military knowledge to look at this scenario and recognize Russia has drones that can fly long distances, let alone, what are we looking at here? From, even if you step back a little bit, 10 kilometers? Well, I mean, that's within cannon artillery range, although Russia and Ukraine are not moving cannons or really any artillery that close to the front. This entire area moving into the city is and has for a while been under direct fire control from Russian drones. So what we were seeing is a heavy increase in unmanned ground vehicle operations, using UGVs to bring supplies in, and at times using vampire type helicopter drones to drop supplies to some of the forward-most units. Alexander Kots talked to one of the Russian drone operators, call sign Shpak, who said, quote, "We're targeting all objectives, disrupting the enemy's logistics, rotations, supplies, and ammunition deliveries to make it as uncomfortable as possible for the enemy to hold their defenses. We assault support operations. We plan the assault routes in advance, and when the guys move forward, we stay nearby and cover them. We hit detected fire points and fortifications. The ultimate goal is to prevent the Ukrainians from even sticking their heads out of their shelters." And that's, again, the scenario that we've seen play out in places like Avdiivka and Pokrovsk is this will soon, if not already, become so saturated with Russian drones that a defense is very, very, very challenging. And we've seen some pushback on the Ukrainian side already, saying what they need to have is a dedicated unit pushing through to clear out some of these Russian infiltrators and push the Russian drone units back. According to a couple different sources on the Ukrainian side, they're not willing to give this up yet. They say the fight there is very much still ongoing. The Russians, however, do remain a bit more optimistic, with Alexander Kots saying, quote, "It's safe to say that the countdown to the liberation of Kostiantynivka has begun, if not days, then in weeks." They have traditionally been way overly optimistic, and there's a number of pro-Russian accounts and commentators and analysts that have called for the fall of Pokrovsk for like 2 years before it happened. We've seen the same thing in Kostiantynivka, so it's definitely trending in that direction. I don't want to pretend like there's some rosy picture here at all. Days or weeks might be a little bit on the fast side based off of how these other fights have played out. Now, Deep State Map went on to talk about what's coming next here. They said, once Kostiantynivka falls, and it's only a matter of time. That's the exact phrasing from Deep State Map, to give you an idea. Like, this is very challenging to fight your way out of. They say Drushkivka will be next. Zoom out a little bit so you can see this. Drushkivka, straight up the road here. Which now plays an extremely important logistical role, and after that, Kramatorsk. As soon as Kostiantynivka comes under the control of the enemy, the logistics for the defense forces in this area will change radically, creating additional difficulties in any movements, and even staying in Kramatorsk will become extremely dangerous, where enemy pilots will do their jobs. What they're talking about are Russian drone pilots striking targets in Kramatorsk, and we are already seeing that. In fact, in the last couple of weeks, we have seen kind of an influx of FPV drone footage inside of Kramatorsk striking targets there. So you can see the direction that this is going. The benefit that Ukraine has here is this is a heavily defended area. So if you thought that it took a long time to take Pokrovsk, or if you thought it's taken a long time and heavy casualties to take Chasiv Yar, which still hasn't completely fallen, or Kostiantynivka, this is another level. All right, so there's a lot of defenses, a drone wall standing between Russia and actually moving into Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, or Drushkivka. However, it wouldn't take that much more for Russia to make that effectively unlivable for any Ukrainian civilians. It's largely there already. The Institute for the Study of War also talking about this. Again, kind of throwing some cold water on the recent Russian claims around Kostiantynivka. ISW said Russian forces continued offensive operations on June 21st in Kostiantynivka, but did not make confirmed advances. They added that the Russian Ministry of Defense and other Russian sources continue to play up the extent of Russian advances within Kostiantynivka as part of an ongoing information campaign designed to falsely paint the city as falling imminently and to inflate Russian military capabilities. I feel like that's a story from the beginning of the conflict. So again, no doubt Kostiantynivka is in a tough spot. It is becoming harder and harder to fight there. The entire fortress belt is continuing to be a harder and harder area to fight in. It hasn't fallen, and it's continuing to inflict significant damage on the Russian attackers. Now, quick fundraiser update. We're actually supporting a lot of units fighting in some of these most contested areas of the East. We just delivered the 17th vehicle through our Car for Ukraine campaign within the last couple days. 17 vehicles already delivered this year. We're 27,000 euros into a 97,000 euro goal for this summer. And I want to play a video for you from the team over at Car for Ukraine. I don't know if anyone knows this, but every week they put together a video showing the deliveries of these vehicles, what's being delivered, how it was sourced, kind of a walkthrough of the vehicles themselves. I'm going to play one of my favorite ones from this campaign. It's a couple weeks old, but it shows 3 vehicles that you all provided to the Seraphims. That's the drone battalion and the 104th Territorial Defense. This is your work. 3 trucks directly sent out to some of the hottest areas of the front. Play that video here in a second, but for anybody interested in learning more or contributing, if you're so compelled, that link will be in the description and pinned comment below. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Actually, this one is much simpler. 3 solid Hiluxes. 3 to the same unit, 104 Seraphims. These guys have been skyrocketing. These guys have been doing some hard job in some of the toughest areas in Kramatorsk, in Sloviansk, in those regions, and they need vehicles. They are scaling up their operations, and thanks to Preston, we've managed to get these ones. These ones are already truck number 7, 8, and 9. We will include all the names for each truck, so to make sure that everyone has been credited. Truck number 9, Connor, Jan, Joshua, Austin, Rodney, and all these great people wouldn't be possible without you. Truck number 8, Greg, Carl, Patrick, Vladimir, Lambert, Dominic, Sean. Guys, you're awesome. This truck wouldn't be possible without all of you. Truck number 7, Alexander, Robert, Zoran, Douglas, Philip, Caden, Delibor, David. Sorry if I don't say some of the names right, but Preston, your community is awesome. We have a new sort of batch of Preston's Tours Offensive 2026 launched, the spring one, and it's just the right timing that we've come up and we've wrapped up the winter one with 9 vehicles. I think we've committed for 8, if I'm not wrong, but we managed to get a few more. Maybe we'll actually get an extra one because it seems like we've raised a bit more.